Warning: Name of God appears at Beit next to Jerusalem. Wouldn't it be fascinating if the land itself whispered stories of faith? In Israel, the geography holds a remarkable secret. As you explore Jerusalem, a truly incredible sight unfolds. The land appears to reveal God's name. Considering the current events in Israel, it feels almost like a powerful message, a divine declaration booming worldwide. This land is mine. What makes this discovery even more profound is that it's not just any name of God. It's the most sacred name, one Jewish people hold in such high reverence that they avoid speaking it aloud to ensure its perfect pronunciation. Now, imagine finding such a sign in any location. It would be awe-inspiring. But the area in Israel adds another layer of wonder. This inscription from the land appears right next to a place called Bethel, which translates to House of God in Hebrew. And get this, Bethel is situated between Jerusalem and Shiloh, a location steeped in biblical history, the very place where Jacob dreamt of a ladder reaching heaven. Isn't that extraordinary? Just by understanding the significance of this area, its name, and the message God seems to be etching through the landscape, it's enough to send shivers down your spine. But hold on, this isn't the only instance where Israel's geography seems to proclaim God's presence. Let's delve deeper into Jerusalem, the holiest city. A closer look reveals something truly remarkable. The three central valleys of Jerusalem seem to form the shape of the Hebrew letter Shin. This letter carries immense significance in Israel and is often seen on doorways and gates. Why? Because it's the first letter in a title for God, Shaddai. Once again, we find a symbol deeply connected to God's name embedded within the very structure of Jerusalem. Isn't that fascinating? And there's even more to explore, but that's a story for another time. We came across the news about the discovery of God's holy name on the walls of Jerusalem. This time, it's not just any place in the city, but right next to the Temple Mount, a location considered to be the holiest place on earth. Isn't that fascinating? It almost feels like God is sending a powerful message directly to us. Imagine God is seemingly saying to the whole world, "This place is mine, and I will be the one to determine its future and who will have the privilege of caring for it. The land I specifically chose for the Jewish people won't be divided by anyone else." This discovery adds another layer of significance when we consider what the Bible tells us about God placing His name on Jerusalem. Even during the times when the kings of Israel strayed and worshipped idols, God reminded them of Jerusalem's special status. He placed His name there, a constant reminder of its holiness and a call to treat it with respect. Additionally, the Bible mentions God building altars in a specific location, declaring, "In Jerusalem, my name will be forever." Here's where things get even more interesting. The Bible actually mentions two specific places where God placed His name: Jerusalem, as we discussed, and also Shiloh. Shiloh is an even older location than Jerusalem, and it held great importance as the place where the tabernacle resided for a significant period. Now, right between these two incredibly important places, Jerusalem and Shiloh, we have this incredible discovery, the most sacred word in Hebrew, God's holiest name. And guess where it was found? Right next to a city with a name that literally translates to House of God. It's simply mind-blowing, wouldn't you agree? This discovery truly sparks curiosity and a sense of awe. It feels like a powerful message from above, reminding us of the deep connection between God and this specific location. It's a fascinating development that adds another layer to the rich history and significance of this holy land. This discovery is not only amazing, but it also carries a significant weight in the current situation. As you mentioned, there's a lot of pressure on Israel to divide the land, especially the West Bank, which some call God's Israel. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Think about where these significant locations are situated. Shiloh and Bethel are both located within the West Bank, and Jerusalem, though technically outside of it, has East Jerusalem, which is a major point of contention. The world seems to be suggesting that this holiest place on earth, including the Temple Mount, should be given back. Now, this proposed division goes against the promises God made according to the Scriptures. With this discovery, it almost feels like God is issuing a powerful warning. It's like he's saying, hold on a minute. This land, Judea and Samaria, not some West Bank, belongs to me and my chosen people. This is a crucial point to consider, and it adds another dimension to the ongoing conversation. If you feel this message is important, please share it with others. Spreading awareness and understanding these historical and religious complexities can hopefully lead to more productive discussions. The 20th century was a time of great upheaval in Europe. Central European countries and the Ottoman Empire saw it as a chance to grab more power, and war became their tool. This horrific conflict resulted in a staggering 40 million deaths. The alliance between Germany and the Ottomans crumbled, leading to the breakup of their empires. These changes also paved the way for the creation of Israel in the Holy Land. After 2,000 years of Jewish exile, British troops defeated the Ottomans, and on December 11, 1917, General Allen triumphantly entered Jerusalem with his forces. Here's a fascinating story about this event. Jerusalem had been waiting for this momentous occasion. Since the Crusades, no Christian force had set foot in the city. Anticipation crackled in the air as General Allenby's arrival neared. Imagine the scene. Inside the old city, near Jaffa Gate, the first person to enter wasn't a soldier, but the British Army cook. Everyone mistook him for General Allenby, and the celebration began prematurely. The music swelled, and the mayor prepared to present the city key, only to discover that it was just the cook sheepishly asking for eggs for the general's breakfast. Needless to say, the eggs were quickly produced, and Allenby soon made his actual entrance. But the surprises didn't end there. Everyone expected Allenby to arrive on horseback, a grand victor mirroring figures like Alexander the Great or Pompey. Instead, something quite unexpected happened. The general dismounted and proceeded on foot. This was a complete shock. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "What's he doing? This isn't the plan!" Later, when asked about his unconventional entrance, Allenby offered a profound explanation. "How can I ride a horse into the city where my lord rode a donkey?" Quite an incredible gesture of humility and respect for the holy city, wasn't it? Those were indeed exciting times for the Christian world. The return of Christian rule to Jerusalem felt like a significant event, especially coming so close to Christmas. English newspapers even portrayed it as a Christmas gift. But to understand the full picture, we need to rewind a bit before the outbreak of World War I. Let's meet Chaim Weizmann, a pivotal figure in the creation of Israel. Weizmann wasn't just any man, he was a highly respected chemist who even held British citizenship. He's credited with inventing acetone, a crucial component of smokeless powder, a substance that significantly aided the British war effort. Weizmann's influence on Israel's creation becomes even clearer when we look at his interactions with Arthur Balfour, a prominent British politician. Early in his political career, Balfour wasn't particularly sympathetic to the Jewish cause. In fact, you could even say he held some anti-Semitic views, which unfortunately weren't uncommon back then. We'll delve deeper into their relationship and how it ultimately impacted the creation of Israel next. Balfour's views on the Jewish people did indeed shift later in his career, culminating in the famous Balfour Declaration. But initially, as you say, his stance could have been more supportive. He likely saw Jewish voters as a potential political tool for the Conservative Party. In the early 20th century, there was this really interesting change of heart in a guy named Balfour, who was a big shot in British politics. Once upon a time, he suggested that maybe Jews could have a home in Uganda instead of their ancestral land in Israel. But just about 10 years later, he did a total of 180 and signed something called the Balfour Declaration, which basically said, "Hey Jews, you deserve a homeland in Israel." Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, imagine if someone told you that instead of living in your hometown, you should move to a completely different country. That's what Balfour was suggesting to Uganda. But then he realized that for Jewish people, Israel wasn't just a random piece of land. It was their historical and cultural homeland. So he changed his mind and said, "You know what? You guys should have Israel. It's only fair." This declaration wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a promise from one of the most powerful countries in the world, saying, "We support you in making Israel your home." And that was huge because it gave Jewish people hope and confidence in their dream of having a country of their own. So, from suggesting Uganda as a substitute to backing Israel as the real deal, Balfour's journey shows how people can change their minds when they learn more and think things through. And the Balfour Declaration? Well, it's like a symbol of that change, a reminder that even in politics sometimes, hearts and minds can open up to doing what's right. The Balfour Declaration stands as a pivotal moment in modern history. For over 2 millennia, the Jewish people had yearned for a homeland scattered across the globe. In 1917, amidst the chaos of World War I, a major world power, Great Britain, issued a remarkable statement. For the first time, it acknowledged the Jewish people's right to a place to call their own, a national home in Palestine. This declaration, though carefully worded, held immense significance. While it stopped short of explicitly endorsing a Jewish state, it offered a beacon of hope, a legitimization of a deeply held dream. The timing couldn't have been more striking. Just months later, British forces captured Jerusalem, solidifying their control over Palestine. With the war's conclusion, Britain, along with France, emerged as the dominant power in the region, carving up the Near East. Palestine's fate now rested in their hands. Crucially, Britain held the key for the Zionist movement. This is where Chaim Weizmann steps into the picture. A brilliant scientist whose contributions held immense value for Great Britain, Weizmann leveraged his influence to bridge the gap between the Jewish community and British leadership. He fostered a strong connection, particularly with Prime Minister David Lloyd George, paving the way for the Balfour Declaration's creation. However, as you rightly mentioned, the story doesn't end there. The British stance on Palestine would evolve over time, leading to future complexities. Yet, the Balfour Declaration stands as a crucial turning point, a testament to Weizmann's strategic efforts and a glimmer of hope for the Jewish people's yearning for a homeland. Now, Mr. Lloyd George was a man of deep faith, and the stories and places of the Bible held great significance for him. Weizmann, a keen observer, recognized this quickly. Instead of diving straight into political discussions about land, he decided to speak a different language, the language of the Bible. Imagine sitting down with Mr. Lloyd George, sipping tea, and listening to him spin stories of legendary figures like Rebecca and Abraham, just like bedtime stories from childhood. He'd chat about important cities from the Bible like Shechem, Jerusalem, and Hebron, places that held deep meaning for him. These tales weren't just stories to Mr. Lloyd George. They were like old friends, close to his heart. They sparked something inside him, stirring up memories and emotions. There's this one delightful story that perfectly captures how Mr. Lloyd George's heart started leaning towards the idea of a Jewish homeland. Picture this. Weizmann, a key figure in the Jewish community, had a meeting scheduled with the Prime Minister, but the meeting kept getting pushed back. When Weizmann finally got in, he was met with a surprising sight: Mr. Lloyd George, tears welling in his eyes. It turned out that the Prime Minister had spent the entire morning lost in the Psalms, those beautiful poetic verses from the Bible. At that moment, he shared something profound with Chaim Azriel Weizmann. Despite the chaos and devastation of World War I, amidst all the darkness, Mr. Lloyd George saw a glimmer of hope, the dream of a home for the Jewish people, a place they could call their own, a place called Israel. All right, let's put it all together. After World War I, things finally looked up for the Jewish people. You see, for centuries, since way back in the 1st century AD, Jewish communities were scattered all across the globe. They didn't have a specific country to call their own. They were everywhere. And hey, remember when we chatted last time about how God had a hand in this, scattering them as part of a prophecy? Well, fast forward to the 19th and 20th centuries, and guess what? We're witnessing something incredible. The return of the Jewish people to their ancestral home, the Holy Land. And get this, it was all foretold by God, even before they set foot there the first time. Now, after World War I, things got a whole lot easier for Jewish folks wanting to head back to the Holy Land. Thanks to that Balfour Declaration we talked about earlier and the support of the British Empire, the doors were wide open. So, they seized the opportunity, and we saw these waves of Jewish migration known as aliyahs. Aliyah means going up, because, you guessed it, Jerusalem sits on some pretty high ground, so you're always going up when you head there. During this time, the population of the land of Israel shot up like a rocket. Remember when we chatted about it during the Ottoman Empire? It was a desert back then, with hardly anyone around. But as the Jewish folks started rolling in, things started to change. They built homes, they hired workers, and suddenly, the place was buzzing with activity. Even the Arabs started coming over because there were jobs to be had. And for once, there was hope in the air. But, as you can imagine, not everyone was thrilled about all this growth and prosperity. Some Arabs started thinking, hang on a minute. Why should we let the Jews have all the fun? This land is ours too. And that's when things started to get a bit sticky. The British, who had been pretty supportive up until then, started feeling the pressure. They had to juggle the interests of both the Jewish and Arab communities. And let's just say, it wasn't an easy balancing act. In conclusion, we delved into the complexities of World War I and its lasting impact. We explored the major events that unfolded during the war and the significant changes that arose in its aftermath. However, the discussion shifted to a separate topic, focusing on a religious perspective concerning the land of Israel. It was mentioned that the appearance of the name of God at Bethel, presumably in Jerusalem, is interpreted by some as a sign of divine connection to the land. This connection is seen as threatened by pressures to divide the land. It's important to acknowledge that the geopolitical situation in Israel is complex and multifaceted. While this program explored a religious viewpoint, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has deep historical roots and ongoing political intricacies. To understand the situation more comprehensively, it would be beneficial to explore different perspectives on the conflict, including historical contexts, political realities, and the hopes of both Israelis and Palestinians for a feeling of lasting peace. Leave your opinion in the comment. Thank you for your attention. Shalom.